Hello and welcome to another episode of the Best You interview series. It's Gary here again. Thank you very, very, very much, as always, for taking the time to tune in to this particular episode. And today I'm delighted to be joined by executive coach, writer and entrepreneur, Dr. Rhonda Parmer, who has given me permission to call her Rhonda from this point forward. I expressly asked that question prior to recording, who is here to discuss her work primarily with women who want to navigate and express themselves better in male company. It's not just for females in male company, it's for everyone, but that's the kind of specialist track that we will have for today's conversation. Rhonda is a seasoned consultant with over 31 years of dedicated service in public education and beyond. And Rhonda works to help successful executives build unshakable confidence and avoid burnout. She is a children's book author and started writing a leadership book called Ease into Leadership. And Rhonda designed the EASE framework to break down tasks into 4 simple phases, which we'll get a chance to talk about today. And working with individuals or teams, Rhonda has a roadmap for executives to choose the skill they want to address. Rhonda supports her clients through hosted workshops and one-on-one work to help them discover their strengths and align their actions with their values. And Rhonda recently shifted from working solely with school administrators to working with leaders and aspiring leaders in all sectors. The challenges are the challenges. It doesn't matter what sector you're in. Rhonda, thank you very, very much for taking the time to join me today.
Well, thank you so much, Gary. I'm very honored to be here. I appreciate your time and welcome to all the listeners.
Excellent. Wonderful. Thank you. So let's start with your journey. Very heavily weighted on education in your background, and you had a variety of roles there, which then became somewhat of the quasi-inspiration for you to say, wait a second, there's something different coming for me here. Can you tell us a bit about your journey?
Yes, so you mentioned it. Yes, 31 years in public education from substitute all the way up to associate superintendent. So the last 12 years, I did work closely with the leaders, coaching and supervising them. And it turns out there were some patterns that we found, and it really had a lot to do with confidence and courage, and even, which is all buried in belief, but belief in themselves and others that caused this um, issue of either burnout or procrastination or frozen or whatever, however it manifests. But what I found is that when people started to believe in themselves, whether that was fake or real or they borrowed someone else's belief, then they saw movement and traction. And so I worked with schools that were underperforming. And so many times when we could convince the teachers in other schools that look just like this have success, you can too. And same thing with the students who look just like you, who come from the same neighborhoods or whatever, they can have success, and so can you. And it was a matter of changing their mindsets to kind of get them in gear. And that sort of made me reflect. So just real quick, Reader's Digest version. My very first year as a principal, I was diagnosed with 2 types of cancers. And one, it was a stage 3 and a stage 4 cancer. So that was scary, obviously, in and of itself. But this is going to sound crazy, but it was even more scary for me to have to ask people for help. And so literally my husband and I role played and practiced. What would it look like? Would it be an email? Would I talk to people face to face? Would it be in small groups? Would I just tell everybody? Or how was I going to do this? Because that was so frightening to admit that as a leader, I couldn't do everything. And that really set the wheels in motion for this EASE framework. It wasn't called that back then, but it had all these components. And then over the years, like I said, over the last 12 years of working with the leaders, then it started to take shape. And then over the last 5 years, even though I was still in public education, I did begin working with pastors and leaders of nonprofits and just continuing that leadership journey and helping people realize you don't have to do this alone. There's no reason for you to be burned out. We're not going to wear a 14-hour work day like a badge. Yeah. How can we really get better at all this? That's when that EASE framework really solidified. Yeah. And then retired from public education, ready to seriously just keep working with educators. But as I had that message out there, more and more people wanted to join in, whether they were in education or not. So it's just kind of blossomed from there. And That's how it happened.
Do you know, I love it, and I especially love it. You know, I'm involved in education, have been involved in education for a number of years too, and also have had the privilege of being managing projects, being a project manager in a number of industries, and the amount of people, the amount of cultures, if I could say that, you know, in terms of the industries that I've worked in, that have this genuine belief because they don't know any better, and I don't mean that in a disparaging or demeaning way. They have this, these are unique challenges to education, to oil and gas, to utilities, to, you know, construction, to, you know, what educate, like anything. And the more, and it sounds like you're having this literal experience right now, the more that I would go through these various transformations and managing projects in different industries, the more I would be like, no, this is just the same. This is a communication challenge, or, you know, this is a lack of understanding or a lack of appreciation for the intricacies of other people's work, or whatever the challenge and problem was. And the thing that I love about what you've done to get you to where you're at, Rhonda, is the fact that you were paying a different type and style of attention. You were saying, wait a second, because people can, you can still do great work and somewhat, if I could say, sleepwalk through your existence to say, I fixed that problem here, I fixed that one there, I helped with this here, I helped. And many people don't put together the dots and say, wait a second here. You know, I don't want to keep solving the same thing with the same people under the same circumstances, and taking that and then knowing because you start to look at things differently. And when you start to look at things differently, you see different things. And that ability to be able to say, there is a pattern here and there is an easy fix. And another thing that I loved, which I thought you were just about to say, is one of the things when people start believing in themselves, you know, if it's all wrapped in belief, one of the key things that I've seen, I would be really interested in your opinion on this, is that people have, for some reason, this is a problem that's unique to me. It's unique to my experience. It's unique to my background. It's unique to my education and my skill set and my strengths. And it's absolutely monumental the amount of effort I have to put in to be able to change. So I'm going to have to just stay where I am. And then when you come up with frameworks like the ease framework, which I'm really looking forward to hearing about, people go, wait a minute, is that it? And you go, that's it. And just keep doing that and keep learning and keep, you know, course correcting where you need to correct it. Has that been your experience where they make it up to be this massive, massive course of action?
Yes, it's an albatross that they feel is only, like you just said, unique to them. And I will tell you that when I was in education, I was guilty of the same thing.
Yeah.
So once I got out, it's like these blinders came off, and that's when I began to see really this is the same issue day in, day out, across industry, even across roles to a certain extent. But people are people,
Yeah.
and people want to be noticed, and people want to be heard, and also people. Part of part of some of the training I've had on giving the DISC assessment through John Maxwell.
Yeah.
It's a behavior and communication style assessment. There are hundreds of them out there, but what we found in this research from the DISC is the first 21 to 25 years of your life, your your subconscious is programmed with things you see and the things you're taught at those ages, and the things that are reinforced that you do that are reinforced positively or negatively. That becomes your truth. And
Yeah.
that's the same for every single person, regardless of your culture, your country you come from, your background, what political affiliation, how much money your mom and dad made. That's the same experience we all have. So whether you're born with a silver spoon in your mouth, or, you know, living on, paycheck to paycheck or whatever, that experience of how our brain develops is exactly the same.
Yeah.
That's why it's critical on this belief system that you first identify what beliefs do you have? What is your blueprint already? Do you hear a little sound in your head that keeps telling you lies? And you're not good enough. You don't belong here. What do you think you're doing? Who do you think you are? All these things that people may have said to us in the past
Mhm.
that were hurtful or out of jealousy or anger or for whatever reason, but somehow it's stuck in there.
Yeah.
But the good news is there's 33 to 50% chance of you rewiring that.
Yeah.
But the very first step is to notice that it happens.
Yeah.
And that's we can start that work when someone's around 12. You can really start it earlier than that, and it's best. Well, you can start training the person to overcome it when they're around 12, but you can prevent it starting from the day they were born, even when they're still in the womb. I mean, what words matter,
Yeah.
and people, might be saying, "Oh, that's sensitive," or "That's just a load of, crud," or whatever. But words matter because they get stuck in your head, and the importance that we attach to it is what matters. Now, if we can first identify those blueprints that are not right, then we can begin to replace them. And so that's what I teach women who perhaps there's an aspiring leader, maybe it's a great bank teller who feels that she's ready to move on to be the director of all the bank tellers. Okay, well, that's great. You have this task down. You know how to be a bank teller, and perhaps you've even been a peer role model or peer mentor to other bank tellers. But guess what? Moving up to be the director is not just learning those tasks and teaching other people those tasks. It's dealing with people.
Yeah.
And I say dealing with in a very gracious way, because we do deal with people, and that's what this world is all about. So how can we think about what the basic needs of all people are and meet them consciously, take steps to meet those needs? And some of the very basic needs are a need for safety. This is a safe place to speak. I know nobody's going to come down on me. If I'm misunderstood, they're going to ask me clarifying questions. They're not going to look at me weird or say that's stupid or whatever. Even if they do, then how do we model great communication back to them? Hey, that hurt my feelings when you said that. Can we set a boundary that you're not going to call me stupid in this meeting or whatever? And that is so hard. It's so embarrassing and you feel robotic, but that's part of what we teach. And so I'll just quickly go over this in this ease framework, and I'll give you the background. And I mean, I already gave you the background on how it came about, but in general, it stands for ease. The first E is engage. So we want to engage, self-reflect. What is our blueprint? What are our strengths? How do we consciously use those strengths? And then also with engage, what are our team's strengths? So then where do we fill in those gaps? The second part is align. So how do we align all those strengths to maximize our impact? If Gary is great at communications and I have him in HR and he's doing very poorly in HR, I don't need to fire him from HR, from the whole company, transfer him over to communications and let him thrive. So that's part of that assessment. Where are they strong? How do we align their strengths with the company or organization values and needs? And then simplify. What processes do we have in place that we could simplify? What communication tools do we have? What decisions are going to be Gary's and Gary's alone because he's over communications? Or where do we need a team decision? Or where do I need to have the final say as the leader?
Yeah.
And we got to figure out how much of that needs to be written out, how much of it is understood company-wide, and move from there. And then the final one is empower. And that kind of goes along with those decision-making things that I just talked about. And empower people to delegate without feeling guilty. You're not dumping your work on someone. You have to reframe the way we look at delegation too. So how are we growing the next generation of leaders and not robbing them of any learning that they may need?
Yeah.
Now, that is it in general, Gary. But then guess what? Based on how they come out in the engage and align steps, I have probably at least 100 more ease frameworks for every single thing you can think of. Effective communication, team building, scheduling, roles and responsibilities, creating partnerships outside of your organization, every budgeting, sales, everything you can think of that has to do with streamlining processes and organizing, there's this framework. Yeah. So the framework describes what the EASE would stand for in that case. Almost every single time it still stands for those four.
Yeah.
But then it gives you a continuum. So where are you on this continuum of engaging people for this particular thing? Are you at a beginner level, an intermediate level, or advanced level? And then depending where you are, it gives you tips, reflective questions, etc., to help level up. It's not a worksheet that has to be turned into anybody. It's just
Yeah.
some coaching questions and tips to work as a team and move on.
Yeah. Yeah. So powerful. And people respond well to use the word simplicity. They respond well to something. If your acronym is 8 or 9 characters long, and then you're saying it's full of all these things, people would be maybe kind of like getting glass-eyed and thinking, oh, this is too much for me. So back to what I was saying earlier, it's not this albatross that you'd mentioned. It's something that you can easily digest, you can easily understand, and you have that information. I did want to go back to what you'd said earlier about the inner voice and such. That's kind of, I was going to say pre-programmed. That's not the right term. Programmed into you as you grow up. And I was actually just talking to a class this morning about there's two kind of major factors of that in respect to what we're talking about right now. The first one being, the things that they are saying to you. I did this through my coaching training. The things that they're saying, you're a loser, I don't even know, everyone's going to know you're a fraud, you're going to break it all again, nobody really wants you there. Like, whatever they're saying it to protect you. They're not saying it to break you down. They're saying it to say, listen, we're okay. We're okay where we are. We don't need to push. That's for other people. Why don't we just sit here? This is cool. The remote control's just right there. The fridge is mere feet away. We could just sit here and have a time of it without putting ourselves out there. So number one, it's there to protect you. And number two, if you think about the things that you say to yourself, or you allow yourself to say to yourself, are any of those something that you would be comfortable saying to another person that you cared about? And the answer, of course, is 100% no. Like, no, I would never say that to anyone else. Why is it okay to say it to yourself?
Okay, my book is not published yet, but you already read it, right? You already got the manuscript. That is exactly right.
Yeah.
First, and you said it right, the protection, but I say it a little differently. Comfort.
Yeah.
Comfort is the enemy of growth. And whenever we say those things to ourselves, or other people say them, or whatever, it is to protect us. They go into protection mode, or we're going into comfort mode, and it is to fight that fear.
Yeah.
So if fear like, think of this as a seesaw. Fear is on one side and excitement's on the other. If fear is overpowering and excitement's way up there dangling in the air and fear's down at the bottom, there's not a whole, that fear is in control.
Yeah.
So we need to get that in a balance, or even really more where excitement can overcome that fear.
Yeah.
And that's where we do that self-talk. And so one of the strategies that I tell women and men is speak to yourself exactly like your mentor would.
Yeah.
Or as you put it, speak to yourself exactly the way you would speak to someone else, because you would never tell those kinds of things.
Yeah.
They would never come out of your mouth to anybody else. My husband and I have this kind of conversation all the time because he is an amazing mentor. Like, we need to clone him. But when it comes to himself, he can't imagine anybody, just like you mentioned earlier, it's an albatross. Nobody else knows this. I'm the only one facing it. Nobody can give me any advice. And finally, I had to just kind of trick him into it. Like, hey, I have a friend who, so what would you say to him? And then sure enough, I mean, we've been married over 30 years, and he falls for it every time. And I'm playing like, when are you going to realize that friend is you? And you're talking to yourself, and why can't you do that? But it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard because of that years and years and years of believing the lies, and then the step that you mentioned before. It's not comfortable to step out in faith, to do really what we were born to do.
Yeah.
When we look at this through the ease format, and my company is called Leadership Executive Group, and I really group the big rocks as LEG. So get a leg up on Leadership Executive Group.
Yeah.
I had to do that, Greg, because there's a company in Denver called Executive Leadership Group. So I had to really make it stand out.
Right.
Leadership Executive Group, get a leg up. And then I block everything in 3 categories: line up, execute, grow. And in that line up stage, you have to self-reflect and then look at your team. And that's part of the E and the A and E's. But It's difficult, but it's work worth doing, because that very first part of self-assessment is what what is your calling?
Yeah.
Who do you serve and why?
Yeah.
And if
And
they could reframe it as the way what they're how they're acting and what they're doing and what they're going after is not selfish, it's to serve others,
yeah.
and really find that that's what we all do. We are all here to help each other. What is your unique way that you serve others? Then they start to be able to put that fear and that negative self-talk away.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's back to what you said earlier there, Rhonda, just in terms of, when you're taking that step up from the bank teller to the director of all the bank tellers, and then you're suddenly dealing with people. I was actually having a conversation about this earlier today again, where, you know, the only thing you can control, little bit of a cliche, but so true, is yourself. And by virtue of the fact that you and I are talking and other people are watching or listening to this, there is some level of interest in being the best version of themselves that they possibly can be. And they would like to have a wee bit more semblance of understanding of self and control and that. So we're willing participants in the control factors. Then you deal with a whole bunch of other people who are all over the spectrum, and in terms of self-awareness, self-understanding, self-control, caring or not, and different types and styles of behavior. So then if you think about it just in the terms of the most basic, if you've ever tried to get a human being, it doesn't matter what human being, to do a thing or to be in a place or to fix or whatever it is, it's kind of difficult to do, because they're kind of like, yes, I'm in, and then they just walk the opposite way, and you're like, where are you going? And they're like, I'm gonna go and get that thing done. It's over there. Oh, cool, even better. And then all of a sudden you're kind of like, what? Is it me? Is it me? So, but when you do that, when you start to truly understand the level of control that you truly don't have over other people. So it's not about control. Like a lot of what I could say is negative behavior is born from a need or a desire to control situations that are somewhat uncontrollable, to provide, that opportunity to say, I have it here, and whatever else is attached to that. But when you start to realize, right, okay, I can put a framework in place. I can provide as much appropriate communication as I possibly can. There will be a process for course correcting as we go through. We have a communication criteria already set up. This is as good as we could possibly do with the information and people and resources that we have available to us. Now let's just see what happens. What you've done is you've created a healthy space of distance between yourself and the outcome, because you're at that spot now of saying, I'm going to control the controllables, and by the way, the controllables, that's actually not that size.
Yeah.
So, and it's just in our line of work, we know this because we see it all the time, and we've experienced it in our career and in our past as well. And it's trying to raise that awareness, that conscientious awareness, to say, this is, yes, people are complex, but they're not as complicated as you think they are. And that there will be patterns, and once you can figure out the pattern, you can then manage it, not manipulate or in any way have a negative connotation of your dealings with people, but navigate them in a way that serves both you and them and the team at large, and the goal and the vision of what it is you're trying to accomplish, to give yourself the best opportunity to both succeed and have a good experience at the exact same time.
Exactly. That, Gary, what you mentioned there about control, that kind of took me back to Mel Robbins, who her latest book is Let Them.
Yeah,
And that's her biggest thing, is just stop trying to control, give what you can, help what you can, serve where you can, and then let them take it from there. Now, she doesn't stop there. She does have okay, and let me.
yeah,
And the way I've modified that here is, so we talked about helping people, number one, recognize the blueprint, see if there's any fallacy in the thoughts that they may have, and then talk to themselves the way a mentor would. The other is borrow confidence, where know that I believe in you. Now, that's all great when we're in our first coaching session, or when we're reviewing that first result of all the discs, themselves and their team. But then 2 weeks go by and I'm not around. And they can say, oh, yeah, Rhonda believes in me. But then what? So the other part of that is recognize small wins,
Yes.
because success breeds more success. And when you can literally break it down, like you may say, I'm going after, okay, let's say it's in the engineering field and we're going after this big contract. Okay, well, it's going to take a while to finalize that contract. How can you show success little step at a time until you get there? Oh, you asked a great question in the meeting. That's awesome. You did not hold back. You talked to people beforehand to see if you were off, if you were wonky or whatever, and then you asked it in front of others. Now people are starting to realize how you think. You had some agreement or whatever, a good discussion. So break it down to something small that can be recognized as an achievement. So that's one thing that, even though I might not be with them and I'm not going to be with them for the rest of their career, clearly, that's one thing I do teach them. Find where you have success, so you don't feel like, oh well, I read it, she told me about it, we did something when I was with her, and now I'm back to the same old person.
Yeah.
I can't
No,
do it.
well, exactly that. And I think that's the difference maker. One of the most fundamental difference makers of people who will embrace the coaching journey and embrace the growth journey that they're on, by really acknowledging the fact that there's very, very little things in life that would create a monumental shift or change in your life. Your double cancer diagnosis was absolutely one of those things. A lottery win, an unexpected bereavement, some sort of accident that becomes material to your health, like something like that. But other than a handful, maybe a couple of handfuls of experiences, everything else is in the micro improvements that are being made. And a lot of people, especially today, and I know it is somewhat cliche in the social media age and such, with AI now becoming more and more prevalent too. Most people don't have the patience for that. They don't have the
Right.
patience to sit down and say, this is boring. By the way, folks, here's a little bit of a tidbit for you. Most of the self-development work that we will do is kind of boring, and certainly most of it is kind of invisible. So you're so right saying you need some success measurement criteria to be able to know, one, that you are actually moving towards your goal, and two, that it's a data point that if you're a wee bit off, of course, or something, that you can say, oh, I wonder what happened there. Let me just get back on exactly where I was at that particular time. And it's just giving yourself that opportunity to say, this is going to be a 3, 6, 12, 18-month endeavor to get to where I want to get to. How do I train myself to endure and enjoy the journey as much as I possibly can, and then eventually look back on the successes and go, it doesn't feel like I did all that stuff, but look at where we're at. Your example was brilliant of, I spoke up in the meeting, and you're then fashioning relationships, you're then establishing credibility, you're then, exchanging information, and you're creating comfort, because not all comfort is bad, of course, but when you get truly in the comfort zone and you stay there for a wee bit too long, that's when you're looking to ask yourself some questions. But not all comfort is completely debilitating or anything for progress. And it's just one of these, if there is no quick fix to this. There is no lottery win to take where you're at right now to where you want to be. It's the hard yards, it's the increment, it's the discipline, it's the ability to course correct, it's to celebrate, to give yourself a pat on the shoulder or a pat on the back if you did something well, or you tried it and it didn't work, but you now have more information that you didn't have before, to then move yourself forward. And I think, we're speaking so much of the same language here. So one of the key things that I talked about very briefly on the bio, when we were pre-chatting prior to recording, one of the key clientele groups that you have are women trying to have a better experience in the workplace to ensure that they articulate themselves in a way that's going to be reflective of them and progressive for what it is that they're trying to get. What was the inspiration behind that?
Okay, I'm going to answer that, Gary, but I'm going to jump right backwards real fast and just give this kindergarten example because you mentioned, this stuff is hard, it's boring, it takes discipline, and that's right. It's just like people who think they can, you know, do some kind of thing from home and become a millionaire. I mean,
Yeah.
it's possible, but you still have to do a lot of work. And
Yeah.
so for just in general on anything, especially growth and improvement, think back to when you were in kindergarten and you had to memorize the ABCs. The teacher did not tell you you have until Friday to memorize the ABCs. And even though they may have tested you every Friday, you learned and you continued learning. And maybe this week you learned 3 more letters, and then next week you got 4 more sounds, but you maybe haven't identified the letter they go to. And you just continued to grow, and you were never graded on it until you got the 100 for knowing them all. And
Yeah.
that's sort of what self improvement and growth, this growth mindset that Carol Dweck explains. It's just not yet. It doesn't mean it's never. It's not yet. So, what steps can you continue to take to continue to just go for it and get there? And that kindergarten example is always what I try to help other clients with. But you asked about working with women and how did this come about? In education, there are a lot of women because a lot of women become teachers. There are lots of male teachers. We love male role models. They're awesome. The students need them. And we love for both men and women to advance through their career into leadership. But as it turns out, I worked mostly with women, and they, especially as aspiring leaders, they had a mindset of, well, I'm a great teacher, I'm a good team leader, I've organized all these field trips, I'm the head of the science fair committee, my students do well, my parents love me, they talk about me out in the community, and they want, the other kids' parents request me, and so they just think they ought to be the assistant principal or the principal. And so um, I had to really do some self-reflecting with them, and let's talk about really what is your why. Is your why because you're sick of summer school, or you're sick of dealing with discipline, or you're tired of these changing standards, or you don't want to do assessments anymore? Because I promise you, the higher you go up, yes, you do get further away from the students, but you're deeper in the problems. So what is your why?
Yeah.
And that's really how it originated. But surprisingly, even after you know, not filling my calendar with school district contracts, the same again, as I mentioned earlier, the same pattern emerges where women have to balance, and this has probably always been the case, but it's just it's easier to talk about now. But they have to balance between their actions and their words, between appearing too much or like a doormat. And
Right.
I think men do too, really. I mean, I'm talking to a man, you can confirm or deny that. But when I speak to men, it's kind of the same thing, especially if a man has all women on his team. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the case in education. There's a male principal with mostly female teachers. So it's a matter of, again, basically acknowledging that barrier exists and then making conscious efforts to address it. So when I use that EASE framework for communication, it is engage is not just self-reflection, but learn the room.
Yeah.
And when I say learn the room, there's some innate stuff about that, like how does it feel when you walk in? But I mean, literally learn the room. Call people by name. Hey, Gary, good to see you today. How are you doing? And then actually listen,
Yeah.
and then connect back to that later. So it's all just part of the human experience of making people feel good, and then align your voice to the mission of the organization. If you pass this why test, it's not just to make more money or to get out doing lesson plan in that particular case. And same thing like for the lady, wanting to move up to director of tellers. What is your why? Once you pass that, now align your voice to the mission of the organization. And if you can minimize the emotions, I know emotions are good, but they don't resonate all the time with everyone.
Yeah.
But facts and clear examples and mission minded suggestions and work and questions go a lot further than that. So it's another training point. And then again, simplify. So in this particular case with communication, ditch the jargon. Nobody cares how many multi-million dollar words you know.
Yeah.
Let's get clear. Can we speak and I don't mean this to be condescending, but how can we speak in a way that a fourth grader would understand it? And that is not to say that we're speaking to people who are on a fourth grade level. We're speaking to people who have 1,000 things going on in their mind with what they have to do that day. They have 3 months in advance of what they're thinking about has to be done in the next 3 months. And then all the personal stuff and society stuff.
Yeah.
So make it simple. You already are up here at the table. You don't need to prove you have a lot of big vocabulary or acronyms. Just speak clearly so you can be heard.
Yeah.
And then the last one with empower is bring other people into the conversation. So this is kind of what I mentioned earlier with the person celebrating a win. Before you go into a boardroom or an important meeting or whatever, talk to a few people beforehand so that when you go in there, even though you might be the spokesperson for that idea, you're not really alone.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a little trick that works.
Yeah. I know, I love that. And one of the things I was thinking about as you were chatting there, Rhonda, was distractions have a big part to play. It's almost an undertone or possibly a D to some of your frameworks to say you get distracted. Other people then have a right to be distracted as you are, whether it's your mobile phone or the society, family, personal health, like whatever is actually happening in all their lives. So if you simplify the messaging to, as you say, not be condescending, but to say, I need this message to get into your brain as quickly as I possibly can. I'm going to use a particular type of style of language that there's going to be almost zero ambiguity around what it is I'm saying. And if you need me to elaborate, I can more than do that for you. But I'm just going to give you the information that you need so that there's no distractions. There's no, I haven't heard that word before, or that seems like an odd thing to say under this context, or, because as soon as you start to think about dinner, about, what you're going to do later on, whether you remembered your gym shoes or whether you didn't, did you actually put the garbage out this morning, or, whatever it is, you're not there.
Right.
So the distractions, if your approach is distracting for other people, back to reading the room, then hopefully you have enough of a relationship with certain people in the room to be able to say, I thought I was nailing it and then I just lost it. What happened? You know what? I think it was when you started to overdo it here or under explain it there, or you got a bit more impassioned, or you were kind of doing something funny with your face, or like, who knows what distractions are there. But knowing and understanding that distractions are there constantly for us, and our attitude, our style, our energy, our delivery, it can either create or minimize a distraction by whether we nail it or whether we don't, is something that would certainly be very, very important for people to understand.
Yes, and I love your suggestion of having sort of an accountability partner, someone you trust. We used to do that a lot where when I finished up with public education, I was on the superintendent's cabinet and we would have these what we call tailgate meetings in the meeting after the meeting,
Yeah.
And so we would literally reflect like, hey, we were talking about, what we're going to do for our leadership meeting, and 3 people felt like they could just get up and leave. What happened?
Yeah.
And so when you build those relationships that are trusting, it's a little bit vulnerable at first because you have to hear, well, you trailed off or whatever it was that led people to believe they could just get up and walk out. But it's going to just strengthen yourself and the organization as you go by. So I love that suggestion of having an accountability partner, and just, again, it's robotic, but to ask, hey, we're about to go in this meeting. I hope to make this point. Let's see if it actually gets made. And
Yeah.
then afterward, let's talk about what we did to make sure it got made, or what happened after. make sure, or to what diverted us. I mean, that is brilliant.
Yeah.
So eased.
Eased. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I hope it works. And the thing is, when I mean, you did mention robotics, but when it becomes, the feedback is essentially micro feedback. It's not, please say it was good, please say it was good. Oh my word. But I really hope, it's a case of what I say to people, and I've probably said it before on these interviews, is there's the meeting that you plan, there's the meeting that you had, and then there's the meeting that you should have had. And I say that because, and it's not for any negative self-talk when you're doing a reflective practice or the tailgate meeting or whatever it is your process is. It's the opportunity to know and understand. I will prepare as best as I possibly can with the information that I have. I will be as present and manage the situation as best as I possibly can in and of the moment. And afterwards, I know for a fact there will be something that we could have done to make people more aware, to make people more comfortable, to get our point across a bit quicker, whatever it is. So then it's not afterwards saying, what a loser, I always do this. It's a case of saying, what could have made this better? And then that's when someone, and if someone says nothing, it was perfect, I don't know, just one thing. Well, when we got to 5 minutes to go, you did say you were going to start wrapping up, and then you started talking about something else, something like that. And you go, cool, good. Yeah, you know what I do? I get myself sidetracked at times. Maybe next time you could say, whoop, 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 and there's some safe word that you can say in the moment, or a gesture or something. But if you understand that three-pronged framework to say, I'm going to do the very best I can in all three of those, but knowing that it's never going to be perfect, and I'm expecting feedback. If I don't get feedback, that's going to freak me out more than you saying, I don't think you managed to get your point across. You stumbled on your words. It looked like you were unprepared.
If they didn't give you feedback, they weren't there. They weren't present. They were distracted.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. I love that. I really love the framework. I love the eased framework that you've put together now, and I hope that you get some success with that. This is the Best You podcast, and it's about self-development. And the word you used earlier was selfish. And I'm on a bit of a track recently of, actually, I literally said this to a bunch of students this morning. You can't be selfless. You can't serve other people if you don't have a selfish component. You need to look after yourself. Nothing works if you fall on your side because you've been working these 14-hour days and trying to juggle every single thing that life is throwing at you. So I'll leave that tidbit there. But in terms of what Rhonda does, a regular practice that you employ to give yourself the best opportunity to be the best version of yourself, what does that look like?
Well, that's an interesting question because I have the personal, my personal relationship things, and then I have my own spiritual things, and then I have my organizational and business type things. So I'm going to just sort of try to tie them all up in there together. So number one, I have a very prayerful life, and it every day starts with gratitude, and at the end of the day it ends with reflection, and that is my prayer and my thankfulness that I was able to make it through the night. I slept well. I'm strong enough to move on, and I've been blessed with gifts to help others. And then as I go through the day, some things help me um, organizationally. So I mentioned earlier, some people have this 3 month ahead of what they're thinking about.
Yeah.
One of the tools I use is a 3-3-3 model. So what really is coming up in 3 months, and what do I have to do between now and then to make it a success, or like you said, at least plan for success. And then break that down a little further. What's coming up in 3 weeks that I would need to get done, or 3 hours to get done, 3 days or 3 hours. So
Yeah.
it's 3-3-3s all the way through. And that just helps me stay organized, of course, with color codes and calendars and all of those things. And then with my husband and my relationship, it is, I do not take my technology to where we watch TV, where we eat, or where we sleep. So my technology stays where I need the technology.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's in the car because we're on a long trip, but I get chastised if it comes out if we're in the middle of a conversation. So I try to,
Yeah.
make sure I'm present there. So use it when it's needed and not just, oh, I'm just going to scroll because it's a boring time on the road. No, take that time on the road to connect and ask more questions and reflect. Hey, remember when we did this? And so it's just building that relationship. And part of that, like I said, is just talking and being present. But the other part is sharing a hobby or some interest. So this is going to sound funny, maybe unexpected, but my husband and I are open road racers. So
Nice.
in Texas is we have Big Bend National Park, and there's a little oasis in a giant desert. Anyway, there's a 59-mile stretch of highway that they literally shut down. It's sanctioned. We put on helmets, we get our cars teched out to make sure we're all safe, but then it's a race against time. And so
Yeah.
you time I want to make it down there. I want to average 135 miles an hour. So you work your calculation. How fast can I go at different times? Because there's
Yeah.
59 miles, 59 turns, and 59 elevation changes. So that's all to say, lots of different ways to keep balance. But that is, I know I'm not going to have a balanced day. One day may be all play, another may be all work.
Yeah.
But if I can think of a balanced life, a balanced month, a balanced year, where you're not juggling those every single day to try to, but over time, none of those priorities feel like they got dropped.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what's so powerful for me there, and I love the road racing, factor, and, adding a bit of danger with fun, with preparedness, with analytics, with competition and things like that, was having the technology where I need it. I haven't, that really struck a chord with me. And then it would be a really fascinating conversation to have with a lot of people to say, do you need that right now? If I talk to my 16-year-old son, he would be like, I need it absolutely everywhere I am. You don't understand, because we don't do technology in the bedroom at all,
Yeah.
and we've never done that. And I know that there's a good excuse now where people are like, oh, that's my alarm clock and it's the way that I wake up. Go buy another alarm clock then. That's actually an alarm clock. And you could do that. But having the technology where I need it, because I'm a wee bit delinquent in having it. Recently I've been getting better of taking it away from where we eat, but where we watch TV. And my excuse is, a lot of times I like to watch documentaries and maybe some sports things. So there's always stats or things to look up. So
Oh, yeah.
my
In
excuse is
that
that,
case, you need it. Hey, Gary, in that case, you need it. You're watching a ball game, you need it because you're going to look up those stats. And you also need to hear what other people are saying about the thing at the time. So
yeah,
you need Twitter sometimes.
yeah,
Or
exactly.
whatever.
But having that philosophy of have it, I mean, essentially have what you need when you need it, but technology more so specifically, I think that's dynamite. I love that. Absolutely love that. And the ability to be able to intersperse everything with your family is incredible as well.
Now,
I really do love that.
now, Gary, thank you for saying that. But you're a coach and I'm a coach, and we like to coach. And where we're most successful is where we coach the people we once were,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
That's because we can give our experience and say, look, these kinds of things are going to happen. This is natural, but you're going to get through it.
yeah.
What you're feeling and experiencing right now is not always the case. But I'll also say that when I coach others, I also get to coach myself. So sometimes that technology is not in the place where it should be. But that's my philosophy, and that's what I aspire to do. And I say, right now, I'm on a good streak of about 98%. But
That's
who knows what tomorrow will bring. So,
exactly, exactly. It will be what it will be, as long as we do it as intentionally as we possibly can. Then that's the best that we can do. And then when we're expressing our gratitude at the end of the day, we can say, wasn't what I thought it was going to be, but tomorrow's a different day. I have information now that I didn't have before, and I'll make sure that I can make a better decision.
exactly.
I love it.
Exactly.
So before I
Yeah.
let you go, Rhonda, where can people find out more about you and your work?
Okay. Thank you for asking. So, Um, the best place to find me is on LinkedIn. So it's just Rhonda Parmer. You search, it might be Rhonda Freeman Parmer or the Leadership Executive Group, or even my website. It's just Rhonda Parmer. Now, when you type in Parmer, it rhymes with farmer, but it starts with a P.
Yeah.
If you put in Palmer, you will get something very, very different. And I do not
Oof.
sanction that site. Do not go there. But anyway, Parmer rhymes with farmer. So rhondaparmer.com or Rhonda Parmer on LinkedIn. And right now, for September, we're planning an in-person session,
Yeah.
and it's all for women who are in this very situation. They feel overwhelmed. They feel like they're carrying everything on their own. They feel like they're the only person who feels this way. And the whole point is to get them together to network and realize, number one, you don't have to carry it all alone. Number two, everybody's doing this. And so how can we learn from one another and try to balance this a little better? And then I have what I call a 5-day pivot challenge. And it's really just to, like I mentioned before, find those erroneous blueprints and then help pivot, rewire your brain for success. And sometimes that is as simple as whatever that negative thought is, literally just say it the opposite way and start reprogramming.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. We'll get all those details in the show notes. Rhonda, this has been a brilliant conversation. Thank you very much again for taking the time to join me today.
You have been a wonderful host and really have challenged me too. I love it. So thank you. It's been a pleasure meeting you.
You too.